Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is on budgeting tips and tricks for Microsoft Dynamics GP. Our agenda is going to be, as per the original invite, tips and tricks on budgeting, key reports and processes, a quick look at the Dynamics GP budget wizard, and we'll finish up with a quick mention to some third-party tools. For those that are new to Endeavour, we've now been around for over 29 years working in Microsoft 3 services, implementation, and ongoing upgrades, optimization, and support for our clients. We now have over 500 clients across Canada and the U.S., and also supporting clients internationally. Core offices in Toronto and Halifax, as well as Montreal, London, Ontario, and Edmonton, Alberta. You can visit our team online at www.endeavorsolutions.ca. I also want to take a quick moment to talk about next month's webinar. It's on a new product that Endeavour is launching called GP Bistro. This is for Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM and those that are using the Microsoft Cloud CRM platform. This handy tool is a cost-effective way to link GP into CRM and provides some fantastic analytics and reports for your sales and marketing and service teams to easily see GP accounts receivable, if there's any accounts on hold, as well as a variety of sales reports to look at actual GP sales, top products or services sold by customer, and the goal being to help empower your sales and service teams with access to information previously held to only those using GP. Can't have a Dynamics GP webinar without talking about the roadmap. Latest roadmap has been released with GP 2018 R2. One of the key areas that Microsoft is focusing on, as is Endeavour, is complementing GP with different cloud-based products and be able to surround the core system with additional products to help your teams be that much more productive and bigger, better, and faster. So now I'd like to transition it over to Brittany. And Brittany, I'll let you introduce yourself and take it on from here and cover off all the budgeting tips and tricks that you have to share.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. My name is Brittany, and I'm the support desk manager here at Endeavour. So some of you may have talked to me before. Some of you may go, who is this lady? I promise I will try and not make budgets too boring. As Scott said, we're going to go through what core GP can help you with your budgets. Okay? So some of you I know are jumping up and down with excitement for budgets because it is budgeting season. And I know some of you might have a little bit of dread because it's budgeting season. Unfortunately, I can't make budgets any more exciting, but we can help you get them into GP and maybe help you out with your reporting a little. Okay? Now, I'm going to actually just flip into my GP here. So as you guys notice, I am in GP, and I am in our Fabricam company just for a little bit of housekeeping, and I am in as SA, okay? So I do have all the abilities possible. All right. For those of you that have used budgets in GP, excellent. And for those of you who haven't, we can put budgets inside of GP. This is part of core GP. You do not need any extended pack or anything else. It is part of core GP. You will find budgets underneath the cards section inside of GP, so let's go ahead and open that up. Okay? There's two ways we can get budget numbers into GP. We can hand enter them one by one, which sounds very daunting, and I probably wouldn't suggest it. Or we can actually import those budgets in to GP using what we call the budget wizard. Okay? Our wizard actually exists underneath the new, and it's actually called the Budget Wizard for Excel. It takes you through a step-by-step, okay? We enter it in, our budget name, and a description, which year. So we can even at this point choose the budget based on our fiscal year, whether your fiscal year is calendar or not. You can choose the budget on this, or you can choose the budget over multiple fiscal years if you want to do it for a date range. You might want a budget from January to December, but your fiscal year might be from July to June. Okay, you can pick either or. I'm going to go ahead and select my fiscal year to be 2018, and my fiscal year is calendar year. Now, you have a couple options here. We can do an open year budget, which means we pick all the numbers we want to be in there, or we can pick a historical year budget, which can kind of mean we take last year's number and add a certain percentage to say, you know what, we're not going to change that much. We're going to take last year's and add 10%. And our blank budget, we put in all the numbers, we come up with that, and we're probably going through an external blessing process outside of GP where you probably are going through your department managers. I'm going to go ahead and select blank. And of course, I have to pick which year I want it for and whether or not I want my balance sheet accounts or P&L or unit accounts. I'm going to say we're going to talk about just budgeting for our P&L today, okay? We then either select all of our accounts or only some of our accounts. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select all. It's going to take a moment there to pop up, and you see here it's asking for an extra confirmation to say, you know, do you want these accounts? If there are some accounts missing from this range, you can go ahead and add them. It's completely up to you. I'm actually going to select a new workbook. So this is where my template is going to default out to. So you'll notice that it's asking me where to save this. I'm just going to call it my budget here. So now what happens is it's actually exporting my template out to Excel. I'm going to let it sit there and export there for a second. I'm going to show you what this template looks like. Okay. Here's my previous budget template that I have here. I'm just going to let Excel open here. What happens is now it's giving you this template. Okay, it has your counts down the left-hand side and our periods kind of throughout. And you're going to go ahead and put in all those numbers from period 1 to period 12 or whichever periods you want to budget for. Okay, and whether or not we're putting in a beginning balance. Once this is completed, we can actually import this back into GP. Okay. Once we import that back into GP, all those budget numbers, sorry guys, I just exited on that. Once those budget numbers are in, we can then use them to report back and forth. Okay. This may seem like a very daunting task to have all of your P&L to budget at once, especially if you have multiple departments. That being said, you can actually do this multiple times. So you can have a budget per department inside of GP. So I can go through that budget wizard process and go through for just my sales department, and then maybe, you know, my IT department and, you know, my accounting department, have each one and then upload all 3 of those budgets in. Because GP actually has a nice process where we can actually merge those budgets back together. So once I complete that budget and I go ahead and I use my Excel button here and I go import from Excel and I import that file that I saved with all my new numbers in it and I import that back into GP. I now have my budgets here that I have. Okay. And if you notice, I put in a couple test budgets here for us. And if we go ahead and open using Microsoft Dynamics GP, you'll notice I have this button here called Combined Budgets. So as I was saying previously, if you have multiple departments that have to get their blessings, and maybe we don't want to have the possibility of human error that, you know, having those Excel spreadsheets go back and forth between multiple people, we can have one budget template for each department and then bring them all into GP and then combine them inside of GP, and so that we can avoid that human error of trying to bunch together all of those budget numbers. Now, once you get that budget into GP, however we're doing that, whether you decide to do it one by one or you decide to use the budget wizard, completely up to you. I did just show you the wizard. I probably should show you if you want to do it using Microsoft Dynamics GP. You would put it in your budget, and this is where you would put it in one by one if you wanted to. And if you want to, great. If you don't, that's great too. We then select our account number, and we actually physically put in each budget number. Now, just as a helpful tip, we also have to remember that revenue is usually a credit balance. So if I am budgeting my revenue, this actually needs to go in as a negative. In your Excel spreadsheet as well, it also needs to be a negative. That's how GP will know that it's supposed to be a credit. Otherwise, you're going to have some negative revenue, and I'm pretty sure someone's going to lose their mind if we see some negative revenue. All right. So once we have our budget in, we're all happy with it, and the world is a great place. we probably don't want that budget to be accidentally messed around with, or maybe numbers to be changed. We want that to be set inside of there. If you go ahead and open that with this Microsoft Dynamics GP, you'll see that there's this little lock button beside it. And this lock has a very important purpose. It can go ahead and lock those budgets for us so that our password is required to make any changes inside that budget. So we probably want to keep that password down to one person, okay? And it's a password per budget. So you can actually have different budget owners. If you have multiple budgets that you might be going against, you can have the password per budget. So that means you would be per owner. Now, that being said, if you ever have the problem that a user leaves who has the password, we can retrieve that password for you as well. You just need to be system administrator and have a little bit extra security, okay? Now, I am in SSA, so I do have extra powers, okay? Now, we all like to think that once we set our budget, you know, in the fall time for the next year, that our budget never changes. Well, unfortunately, we all kind of know that's not true. Sometimes those budget numbers need to change, or we didn't quite budget for something that ended up happening, or something that came in last minute. And we all kind of have those situations. Instead of coming in and, you know, updating that Excel template and re-uploading it, and then we don't necessarily know what the previous budget is and what it is now, we actually have what we call budget transactions. And what budget transactions can do for us is it can increase or decrease our budgets so that we can keep track of those changes. You'll actually find in the financial sections underneath transactions, you'll notice here that I actually have this little button that's called budget transactions. What this can do for me is increase or decrease certain budgeted accounts and keep that history going so I know all the changes, so you get those tracking of changes, right? So I'm going to say that Sally Forgot is my number here, and I'm going to go ahead and pick my account. I'm going to go ahead and pick revenue. I know we think I'm picking on revenue a little, but it's that time of year, right? Let's go ahead and pick that revenue account. I'm just going to go here, and I just scrolled a little too far. Give me 1 second here. Let me look up that revenue account. All right. So let's go ahead and find that revenue account and go down. All right, here's my sales account, 4,100. I want to add. Oops, sorry, guys. Open that up again. I have forgotten how to use a mouse. Go ahead and select that account. Go ahead and pick our budget ID. I'm going to pick my budget here and pick my account. I'm going to go ahead and pick that account here. When I learn how to scroll the mouse. All right. So you can see here, here's my current budget that I have. And I can choose whether or not I'm going to do an increase or decrease. Okay, and I'm going to say that it's actually an amount change. I'm going to say, you know what, she forgot to put a person's salary in here of $1,500. And I can go ahead and calculate that inside of there. So you'll notice that I've now increased that by $1,500 is my adjustment for each period. Okay, I can choose to only pick it for one period or multiple periods. It is completely my choice. I can actually do this manually up here and make my adjustment. So my adjustment is actually $1,700 in February, $1,450 in March, so on and so on. So these changes get tracked for me. They go back and forth. So then I can then report on it. Just like any other entry inside a GP, we can do this inside of a batch. So if we have multiple of these happening, maybe it's not just one salary, but maybe it's a whole department or whatever the case may be, we can go ahead and update those with a batch. And then, of course, post that batch. We can keep those changes. I'm going to say I only have one change, and I'm going to go ahead and post it just for fun. As you can tell, my transaction is now posted, which we might say, you know what, it's all well and fun to have these budgets inside a GP, but what do I do with them? Are they any good to me, or do I just want to keep using my Excel spreadsheet? It is a good question. We can pull those budgets into a couple different places. Those budgets are available to us in FrontList if we choose to use it. We can use it inside of SSRS reports if we want to, inside of MR, which is my favorite, and we also have some inquiries inside of GP. I'm going to talk about MR because, as I said, it is my favorite. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my trial balance here, okay, just so that we can see our account. So my trial balance is opening up here, and you might say to me, you know what, I have MR reports that I love. They're beautiful. I love them. They're fantastic. Well, if you notice here, the only way I can change it is to add a column with my budget. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my budget up here. And I then have to select it from here where we say, you know what, I actually want my budget to be financial dimensions, and instead of actual, I want this to be my budget amount. Okay? Once my budget amount is selected inside of there, we can go ahead and, oops, wrong year, sorry guys. Once our budgets are in there, we can pull them into any of our columns. When our columns are set to budget, we can then start doing favorable and unfavorable calculations of taking our actuals minus the budget and going back and forth. Okay? We always have those options inside of MR for ourselves. Okay? Now, you might say to me, you know what, I love my budgets inside of MR. They're great. I've learned how to put the columns in, and I have those columns, and they're fantastic. A little tip, at the beginning of every year, if you're starting a new budget, you do need to update your columns inside of MR to look at your new budgeted numbers. Now, I know lots of people have seen budgets inside MR, putting them inside the columns. You might not know you have some quick and dirty ways to get to those budget numbers inside of GP. One of my favorites is actually my account roll-up button. And what this can do for you guys is if you want to see a range of accounts and what you are last year versus this year versus now, we can do that for ourselves. Okay, so my favorite one to actually do for this is revenue, because I usually have multiple revenue accounts, and I don't really care where I'm making that money from. I just want to see a total revenue number. Another popular one is cash, because sometimes we don't care where cash is sitting. We just want to know what our total cash value is sitting right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new one here. So I'm going to go ahead and click that modify button here, and I'm going to make one called revenue. I also apparently need to learn how to spell revenue at this point in time. You notice here my first one is going to be my actuals, okay? And I'm actually going to put 3 columns in here for fun. My second column is going to be budget, okay? So I'm going to select my budget here, and I'm going to select my budget, okay? And my last one, I'm going to say this is last year, just so we can see where we're going, all right? We can put another column in here and put calculated, so we can do that favorable versus unfavorable if we want to. If we can switch this to 4, we can actually make this a calculation where we can actually say we want actuals, right, less, oops, sorry guys, add the actuals in there, less our budget. Beautiful. So we can add, oops. Sorry about that one, guys. Let me re-add that here. I want my actuals, less my budget. Let's insert that into there. Okay. So now I have that in here. I also need to put in my range. So I'm going to say my range from account is going to be my revenue account. So I have a very typical chart of accounts in here where my revenue accounts are from 4,000 to 4,999. Okay. If you don't have your chart of accounts set up that way, that is completely fine as well. You'll pick your ranges that make sense to you. I'm very traditional in this environment. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at this actually for 2010 because I know I have some numbers inside of there. So if you notice here, I had no revenue happen. I have a budget. Last year I made nothing in revenue. So now you can see that it's done my calculation for me. I do have it as net change. I can see it as period balances as well if we're doing this from a balance sheet perspective, if we're budgeting for balance sheets. Okay? So we can save these for us all the time, so we have those quick and dirty ways of looking at it in case we don't want to go into MR and create a whole balance sheet or a P&L just for fun there. Okay? GP actually does also have a little inquiry that's called budget versus actual. This, unfortunately, doesn't account by account, but it's sometimes a great quick and dirty way if someone comes up to your desk and says, do I have any money left to buy this? Because we all know sometimes people want to buy extravagant things and they're going, you can't buy those. You only have $1,000 left. Well, you can give them a quick and dirty way to see that screen that says you only have $1,000 left. You better spend your money wisely. Or they might just say, well, I'm going to buy it anyways. But anyway. So we do have that inquiry as well. You might also ask yourself, that's great. How do I check to see that my budget is correct? You know, I did all this work budgeting and I need that control check to say that my budgets were set up entirely correctly. Beautiful. Everyone loves to hear that. We can use our budget card as a way to do that control check for ourselves as well. If you're in that budget section, you can go ahead in here, select your budget, and export that back out to Excel so you see exactly what GP thinks your budget should be for those periods. Okay. It is also a good check if you've done any of those budget adjustments that we talked about previously, those budget transactions that increase or decrease. Okay. And if you ever want to see those increases or decreases, you can see them inside of here. You can also see them inside of your budget section. You'll notice under your reports in financial, you actually have a whole budget section, which is great. And people might say, why do I care? Well, if you have your detailed budget, you can see any adjustments that have happened. So if you ever need to find out what happened, great, you have it here. For those MR lovers out there, if you do any budget transactions where you increase or decrease, you can do that double click or drill down function and see those budget transactions to say, hey, when we look at this last quarter, that guy had no budget left for his department. Now he has $100,000. What happened? Well, you can, if you use the budget transaction entry window, you can put in that adjustment for an increase of $100,000. And when you do that double click or drill down into MR, you'll go ahead and see that adjustment with this reference. Now, I know it's short. We can't necessarily put the whole reference in to say, he complained, we got another $100,000, we didn't really want to give it to him. As long as you have a short reference inside of there, we can go ahead and try and figure out what happened to that budget so that we have those transactions available to us. Okay. Now, that being said, we've mostly talked about financial accounts and how they can be budgeted. If you're using unit accounts, please don't feel left out. You can budget for your unit accounts as well for whatever purpose you are using them for. It does go through the same process to import your budget, okay? You can see those coming in and out, so you would start the same with the wizard and bring it in. You would just do it for unit accounts instead of using it for the financial accounts. You can have a budget that has both. If that's what you need to do as well, you can have it have both inside of there. Now, that is unit accounts. Some of you might also be worrying and saying, you know, I love that we can do a budget and it's for financial accounts, but I am using AA. And in case some of you don't know what AA is, it is analytical accounting for those of you who are using it out there. AA can be budgeted for as well. Okay, it does have a little bit of a roll-up section going on. All the features that you've seen here today with being able to pull budgets into MR, using those budget transactions where we can do increases or decreases, using that budget inquiry window, using those budget reports. In saying that, if you'll note, if your budget is extremely complex and you don't think that GP Core can help you out with that one, we do have some additional third-party products that can help you out with the more complicated budgets, the ones that, you know, are just extremely complicated. They have, multiple different dimensions of where they roll up and how that happens. We have some third-party products and third-party options that can help you out with those budgets. You're not just stuck with GP Core. Okay, so those third-party products, one of them is Profix, and I'm actually going to let Scott do a little bit of a chat about Profix and how you can contact us to find out about Profix and what it can do for you. Scott, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. So you're wrapping up on the, fantastic. Can you bring up the PowerPoint again?
Oh, yep, I'm sorry.
There we go. So I guess as a recap, Brittany talked about, she showed Fabricam GP budgets as part of the core, the budget wizard, importing with the Excel, combining budgets, locking budgets, budget transactions, and then connecting all your budgets into smart lists, MR, SSRS, and other components. As Brittany alluded to, we have 2 tools on the market that we're working with. Profix being the premier Cadillac tool. It is fantastic for handling those very complex needs. Nice, flexible, one-user license covers all the components and gets into corporate reporting, budgeting, forecasting, HR, has some strong workflow components, and is available on-premise or in the cloud. There's also a new tool that we've been talking to and evaluating. It's Excel-based, and it's called Avena, a younger tool, younger company, but quickly amassing quite a respected list of clients. One of the nice things is they can jump in smaller and lower costs with just budgets. So rather than one license covering everything, they have some pricing by work stream and strong workflow designer with that. Next slide. So if either of those are of interest, reach out to Trish 410 for current clients. For those that are looking to have more strategic discussions and different strategic reviews, James McInnes is a new member of our team as a senior client executive. And we also have Steve Ewing, a director, and his focus new clients, as well as many of those on the line who may have recently joined Endeavour. So with that in mind, thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. If you do have additional questions around budgets, you can send it off to support. I'm also just looking quickly at the questions that are coming through the chat. Brittany, one person is saying they don't have a budget transaction in their module. Does that mean they don't have it, or I believe it's part of core, it could be just part of their security settings? What's your thought?
It's usually security. You may not have access to it. You might just need to give yourself security to it. As I said in the beginning, a little housekeeping. I did log in as SA, so I had ultimate power and everything. If you're not seeing that budget transaction window, make sure you're using a version that's 2013 and up, and that you have security to see it.
Fantastic. And if people need help with that security, they can call support desk?
For sure, they can call support. Support is here for you between the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, you have after-hour emergencies. Please feel free to give us our after-hours emergency call number as well.
Brittany, you're the best.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, I think that's everything. Everyone, have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your business, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.